Bon alors, qu'est-ce que Stanley Parable 2 a à nous proposer?
All of his co-workers were gone.
On a les
What could it
ballons.
mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
A trace of his co-workers. Est-ce qu'on peut retourner au new content? Oh le saut! Le saut est arrivé. J'ai mon bucket. J'ai mon saut du réconfort.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
C'est bon, j'ai gagné plus 5 en charisme. Comment ça? Qu'est-ce qu'il faut? Et cette merde. Non! Mon new content.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Bah moi je vais à droite, chais.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee
Il a pété un
lounge was
câble.
simply the place to be.
Non, non, moi je l'entends vraiment le saut, il dit pas ça.
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Non mais moi le saut c'est mon pote. Il y a des ballons. The bucket. Ah ouais non mais toujours. Mais la question, c'est toujours pareil, c'est est-ce que j'ai des nouvelles fins à faire? J'imagine que oui, mais... On a vu qu'il n'y avait plus accès au new content. Oui, tout à refaire. On peut toutes les refaire avec le saut pour qu'il se passe des nouvelles dingueries. De toute façon, on va voir. Hein. Oh, je vais ramener le saut, bien évidemment, dans le local. Ah bah allez. Tiens, avec ton pote. C'est ça, voilà.
The aura of jealousy, it's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend.
Ah, je peux pas le droit de le laisser.
Can't hand it over. Oh no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner?
Ouais, ta gueule, t'es fatigué, va te reposer, arrête de dire de la merde, et là c'est un jeu vidéo et c'est trop drôle.
Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it.
Joli, il est super cool. Paper Please, il est pas un peu limite à streamer ça peut vite partir.
I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There.
Non.
Now it's
ah oui,
settled.
mais
No more debate, no more discussion. Take a hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes.
Bon bah apparemment c'est mon saut, ça y est.
And their relationship to broom closets in the
Propriété de Stanley. Stunk. Il a sorti ça de nulle part.
All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see? I feel that it works because the sticker is also
un
a
autocollant seau
bucket.
sur le
That
seau.
way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, "Ah, it's a bucket." There
Ma
really
gueule.
is a wide variety of applications for this sticker.
Le jeu est un délire pur et simple, mais très cool.
You know what?
Il y a des
I could take
paraboles.
the name calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just giving us the silent treatment. And to be honest, I'm sick of the pettiness on display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of cleaning supplies. Easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. I'll see you outside, and we can get on with the story about you
C'est le
and your
bucket de
bucket.
Stanley, exactement.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Les collectibles!
You found one of
Oh
them.
merde, si.
One of the
Oh.
miniature Stanley figurines.
Putain, s'il y en a 6 à récupérer, mais on n'a pas fini. Il va falloir qu'on refasse toutes les fins pour aller dans tous les endroits pour retrouver de nouveau ça.
You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each
Les purples étaient très cool, mais de ouf. Il a l'air, mais ça a l'air d'être un petit peu le genre de jeu problématique quand t'as des gens qui ne savent pas rigoler et prendre de second degré.
And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy.
Merci.
And then, something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off.
Je sais pas si les musiques sont incroyables.
Gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off.
Je sais pas si c'est les musiques qui sont incroyables ou si c'est un effet environnemental qui rajoute une profondeur au son.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to
Mais il y a un
room,
truc
passing by
de ouf.
one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Mon seau!
Come to me, Stanley. Find me.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Ah, donc ils ont transformé toutes les fins.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Ah, ça va changer la fin avec Mariella aussi.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't.
Ah mais du coup j'ai envie d'emmener le seau. Salut Coquille. Est-ce que c'est possible d'emmener le seau au paradis? Parce que dès qu'on sort de la pièce se ferme.
for which her bucket would provide
qu'on
absolute
teste pour
guidance
voir.
and total clarity on everything. Heck yes.
Mais il faut qu'on aille, au bureau du patron.
Ass, and she backflipped all the way to work.
J'ai collé une feuille, pas de bonbons, désolé sur ma porte. Bah alors. Les deux, ça se complète de fou. Dans une partie, tu avais pas déjà vu dans ton propre corps? Comment ça? Ouais, j'avais déjà eu cette fin, mais pas avec le seau. Bon, le seau, il est plus là? C'était après?
All of his co-workers
Ah,
were
c'était après,
gone.
c'était
What could
après.
it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Donc il va falloir que je refasse toutes les... Ok.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
Il n'y a plus la barrière. Il se passe des dingues.
Stanley clutched the bucket
On va faire toutes les fins qu'il y a à droite, comme ça au moins ce sera fait.
But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be
J'avoue qu'elle est
correct,
classe
was
cette,
this
cette
better
salle de
than the
pause.
meeting? No, never mind.
Never
It
mind.
was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Donc là on a 3
said
fins à
the bucket.
faire.
Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go
Il me
there.
fume, là.
Go to the cargo lift.
Oh c'est nouveau ça. Le collectible.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? Or what
Stanley
about
figs.
Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Ça fait un peu Staline, les Stanlerines. Ok, je peux revenir? Ok. Où est-ce qu'on a atterri encore? Stanlerine, exactement. Stanlerine? Ah, je reconnais cet endroit. C'est un endroit qu'on a vu dans pas mal de clips. Les dialogues du narrateur et tout ça enregistré sur des cassettes. Narrateur de dialogue. Narrateur dialogue. Propriété de Stanley avec mon petit seau dessus. Si jamais j'oublie que c'est un seau. Et étiquette et avec un seau pour me rappeler que c'est un seau. Genie. Oh, il a perdu son chat. C'est bien calme cette zone. Ah, c'est ici que travaille le narrateur?
This is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't
Il a pété un câble un peu le dev là sur l'Ultra Deluxe. Autant le jeu de base il était super drôle, super enjoué malgré les explosions, les chutes, etc. Autant là, un peu plus et on est dans Alan Wake quoi.
What do I do with this treasure? I can I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
Très bien. Ah, vous êtes bien installé. Vous êtes en confiance, je sais plus. Voilà, dès que les jeux d'horreur, ils arrivent même pas à instaurer une petite ambiance comme ça, alors que là, on a juste écouté une cassette, quoi. De base, c'est pas un jeu d'horreur et je suis pas bien dans mon siège.
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a painting. Was it a painting or a photo? He could no longer recall.
Allons allumer l'input.
The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket.
Des ballons! C'est des ballons qu'il y a pour fêter le 12e anniversaire de la belle nièce de je sais pas qui. Ça récupère ton seau. Ah bon, on est allé le chercher. Apparemment, si je vais chercher toutes les The Complotist Instinct. Si je fais toutes les fins avec le seau qu'on a déjà vu, on en apprend de nouvelles. Maybe we are the collectible. Difficult findings. Et donc là apparemment on a tous ceux qu'il faut. Ah, quelque part entre le rouge et le bleu. Donc oui, il va falloir qu'on aille à droite, à droite, à droite, à droite. Près de la fireplace, merde, de la cheminée. Et la cheminée c'est dans la salle du boss, c'est là où on va justement. A private but smelly place for an important person. Et bah là c'est les toilettes devant le... C'est les toilettes qu'il y a devant la salle du boss. Et le fireplace... Où est-ce qu'il y avait un... Le fireplace il est pas dans la salle du boss? Et une fois que j'aurai les 6, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Ah bah en plus on l'a vu. Red Room, la salle rouge. Follow clue provided by employee 416. Ah, là on a 10 milliards de trucs. Il faut qu'on regarde. Attends, mais 416 c'est la porte qui mène au DLC. Alors comment on peut les trouver? Bottom text. Super. Alors des objets qui flottent, ok. Il y a un mémo de la part du management, ok. Agenda, donc il y en a dans les chiottes. Un qui est noir, qui est dans le sombre. Bon bah on va voir. Hein.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers.
Allez!
If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
Oh, tu fais pas d'effort. Hein. Donc je suis allé en bas déjà,
Coming to a
ok.
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Donc direct dans le chiotte. Et là maintenant on sait à quoi sert le chiotte.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Ah ok, donc il se pose des questions, il demande notre avis, mais on n'y répond pas. Hein. Très bien. Et donc là, ah voilà, la cheminée elle est là. Ah putain, j'ai fait oublier ça. Mip. La direction de la salle du boss. Est-ce que je retente l'autre fin?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again
J'ai loupé.
stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now,
Putain, ils ont
in his
refait tous les
darkest of
dialogues de
hours,
tout le
did the
jeu.
bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the keypad was 2845.
2845. Il y a eu du gros boulot. Ah ouais, non mais...
But Stanley guessed the correct code by
Ça
sheer
déconne
luck.
zéro.
Was it the bucket
Les mecs arrivent à
knew
rendre
or
cool
not?
un saut.
Was the bucket guiding him?
C'est ça.
Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Donc là, on est à côté de la cheminée. Il me semble pas qu'il y en ait eu d'autres. Donc là, potentiellement, on a un autre... Ah voilà.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler Anmarines. Very soon, you'll collect the last
Et l'autre, elle est
one, and
au
then
niveau
the first number will
des
equal
portes
the
rouges et
second
bleues.
number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them. And now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler Anmarines. None of us can.
Ok. Oh, on va s'enfuir avec le saut. Ça va être incroyable. Ils vont être libres. Ensemble. Jusqu'à la fin des temps.
The elevator
Meilleur
raced
cosplay
down,
ever.
plummeting towards
Jean,
an
chemise et
unknown
t-shirt
fate.
blanc. Saut costume avec
It would be
dans les
all
mains.
Stanley
J'avoue.
could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket.
Tu imprimes juste
Soothing
les
him,
deux autocollants.
comforting
Hein,
him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
Il faut remonter direct aussi. On va voir.
Wait, Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
Le nombre 3. On peut vraiment appuyer sur le numéro 3 dans le bureau. Il va se passer un truc.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button.
Et il va me dire...
He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over and over and over.
Et il va dire... Putain, il s'est rien passé. Super.
Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3,
Ils sont smart,
he
ils
got
sont
back in
bidonnes.
the elevator.
Mhm. On redescend, on remonte, on redescend, on remonte et ainsi de suite. Hein. On connaît la chanson.
Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much
merci,
joy
Nina.
Stan got from slamming the number 3
Ta
repeat.
magie est puissante, sorcier. Très bien.
Merci pour le
j'accepte de vous rejoindre.
16e mois d'abonnement. Des bisous.
Bon, tu peux
A
arrêter.
hint of regret
T'as repris le
nagged
taf
in
ou
the
pas
back of
encore?
Stanley's mind. Should he
tout cas, bon
demonstrate the
courage.
number 3 for the bucket
Bientôt fait, bientôt la fin
again?
de la journée. Ah, il faut que je retourne, appuyer sur le bouton 3.
No, 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 said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me. You and I have been through so much together, and I just want
Vite ta
you to
poche
see
déj.
what I see.
T'as mangé quoi,
Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
And the bucket said nothing. Une quiche. D'où? Ah, une quiche en entier?
Here we go, said Stanley. This time I'll really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his
Ah, mais
dreams
tout ce
and
lore là
hopes
juste
and
pour appuyer
fears.
sur 3
The whole
touches de
time,
merde de
he
numéro
looked to
3
his
quoi, au
bucket for
secours.
a
Hein.
reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence. Crushed by a wave of dejection,
C'est un saut
Stanley
quoi.
returned to the elevator.
Terrible. Du coup on va finir par se séparer du saut parce que bah c'est plus notre pote quoi. Il rigole pas des mêmes choses que
Stanley and the
nous.
bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's? The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Zut. Là c'est le moment où j'ai la longue montée ou pas?
Ah, said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart. He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3 over
Du coup ouais,
and
c'est bien ça, c'est bien des nouvelles... Ah, y a quelqu'un vu.
and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public
Et des apparitions comme
that
le
the bucket
G-Man.
would finally understand Stanley's work.
Je peux pas redescendre, je suis coincé ici.
For months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around
Pendant
it,
des mois.
developing and rehearsing it, until it couldn't be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
Il est déterminé. Et il a pas rajouté une ou deux affiches avec le saut, un truc comme ça, ça aurait pu être drôle. Ah, il a quand même changé le tableau. 3.
This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
La pizza.
There was no one here.
Non.
Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure.
Il y a un connard qui a toussé au fond de la
And in
pièce
that
là-bas.
moment, Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that
tellement
slowly,
triste.
over many years, the two of them grew more
Dans
and
ce
more
coup de la
distant.
quiche. Oh là là.
They spoke less and less, neither wishing to
Mais que fait
state
la
the
modération?
obvious that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Les sons des mecs qui toussent, ça m'extermine. Tu veux que j'agisse? La culotte est en trop. Et si oui, ça va être la fête du slip.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Il faut que je
Stanley
retrouve.
decided
Ah,
to
voilà.
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Je sais pas si je pourrais retourner au bureau. Un Théo? Un ban? J'ai l'impression de message. Écoute, je te laisse choisir. C'est Halloween. Il faut fêter ça.
Warmth spread through Stanley's
N'hésitez pas
eyes.
aujourd'hui à partir de 16h.
He was home.
Jeu d'horreur chez Tenten. Stairs, il me semble, c'est ça? Il y a quelques personnes qui attendaient pas mal l'occasion de pouvoir faire de voir Stairs. Jure! Bah alors, on suit pas les informations qu'il y a sur le Discord?
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Ouais. On va essayer de refaire la fin, d'aller dans le bureau et de ressortir. Voir si on peut s'enfuir avec le seau. Il va y avoir une récompense pour tous les retrouver. Je sens que ça va être une récompense nulle.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here
Il
for
dit les mêmes
hours.
bêtises que tout à l'heure.
But
Ok.
alas, no. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Attention. Oh.
Stepping in.
Scored. Bien joué, pas mal celle-là. J'avais dit pourquoi pas, puis non, puis là oui. Ouais, j'ai trop hâte, ouais. Tu vas mettre le détecteur cardiaque quand même ou pas? Même si tu restes impassible, on va pouvoir voir la montée du rythme, ça peut être rigolo. Et je reste calme. Figurine Finders Committee, meeting today. To the meeting room. Je vais rester calme surtout. Ah, faut voir le jeu. Parce que pour l'instant, beaucoup de gens vendent Stairs. À voir ce que ça vaut vraiment. Ce qui pourrait être drôle, c'est que tu fasses le jeu. Et moi, je le ferai plus tard. Et après, on fait un comparaison side by side. Beaucoup de gens vendent Stairs, surtout les menuisiers. Et ça, c'est les gens qui ont des parts aussi, comme Nini. Ça, tu n'aurais pas de mal. Hein. J'ai vu vite fait chez Link et Terra. Bon, ça a l'air un petit peu mal fait, non? C'est hyper vieux en plus. Allez, viens mon copain le saut, on se casse. Escape pod lunch. Ah ça j'ai pas eu la cinématique tout à l'heure. Oh, allez. Ils ont pété un câble. Chut, tout va bien se passer. Ah, parce que le pod il est trop petit pour nous. Il y a que la place pour un seul saut. Va. Évite ta vie de saut. Vis là pour nous deux. Tu es libre.
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something?
Oh, il faut que je teste d'aller par la fenêtre avec le seau. Mon seau! Non! Le seau n'existe plus. On l'a libéré pour de bon. Tellement bien Stairs. Oui, j'attends de le faire avant de dire qu'il est bien, mais... C'est partie des trucs à mon avis qui est... je sens une survente, mais... vu que là je n'ai plus le seau... Allons chercher le...
Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime,
il est ok.
a work of art.
Et du coup tu regarderas pas. Je vais regarder un petit peu le début, mais pas trop je pense. À voir, on verra. On verra si le début m'inspire ou pas. Si ça me donne envie de le faire, je serai en mode let's go. Les portes, elles sont là-bas. Hein. Ouais.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
Est-ce que j'ai posé la possibilité de récupérer le seau quelque part? Toi, Franck, je peux faire Madison sans avoir peur. Et t'as fait Beast Inside sans avoir peur. Bah oui. Tu peux largement te spoiler les stairs, ça changera rien. Ouais, d'accord. Ah, tu vas faire Madison sans avoir peur, j'en sais rien.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Nous avons les 6.
And there it is, the last Stiggly Wiggly. Savor this moment,
Stiggly Wiggly, ils l'appellent ça.
This is a real accomplishment. This is doing something just for the sake of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Voilà, je savais que ça allait être du full scam encore. Hein. Génial pour les humains. Toi, tu es le Kratos du God of Game. Du God of Game?
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door.
The red door.
I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
The red.
All right, fine, go ahead, Stanley.
Comment il arrive trop à appuyer sur le D de red.
You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you.
Comme ça, c'est la. On est parti pour la fin du bébé. Ah, je savais que ça vous manquait. Mais...
Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story?
Est-ce que si je retourne au...
specifically for you?
au paradis.
think I put a lot of time into that,
Je vais y
because
croiser
I
le
did.
seau
And in the
avec,
end, it was all for
avec les
nothing,
boutons
because
maintenant.
this is what you
C'est
wanted to
drôle en
see.
vrai.
Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this
The
game
desires
better?
of
What did
yours.
you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what. Let me take a stab in the dark at a new design, and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead
si je
of
vais à
where we
gauche?
were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
Ah, ça mène toujours au même endroit.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version.
Et là, c'est
Would
nul à
you say
chier.
that the
Genre,
game
ça fait mal.
benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here. A 1? I mean, I can understand if you had reservations, you saw ways the game could be improved to more fully express itself mechanically and artistically, but a 1? That's not even helpful.
1?
What am I supposed to do with that? But I guess it isn't my place to judge. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be
Ah, ça change juste le
perfectly
dialogue
candid, I
sur ce
think I've
passage-là, mais
knocked
après
it
il
out of the
renchaîne
park with this one. Let's take a look.
sur le basique.
Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please.
Stanley is online. This is you. On est tout en bas, quoi. Vous êtes objectivement le dernier. Super. Je mangerai pas de gâteau. Régime. Ah. C'est normal, ça? C'est bugué. J'ai softlock le jeu. Ah, l'épilepsie chez vous. Le jeu il est cassé. Tant pis. Recommencer le jeu. Ah mais le menu est resté comme avant. Stylé. Et je tout cassé. Le 5ème input il est pas revenu. Me dis pas qu'il faut que je refasse tous les inputs de zéro. Oh, il a full bugué le jeu, il est tout cassé.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines.
Ah, c'est les
figures.
figurines, ok.
I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life?
Oui, vite fait,
Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines.
Putain, non,
Just one more time.
Merde, c'est ça là. On va retourner au musée. Oh, terrible. Ah, cela dit, on est bien. Maintenant, on va se souvenir de quand Stanley a trouvé les collectibles. Incroyable. Il va nous dire, tu te rappelles quand tu as trouvé ce collectible dans cette pièce-là? Oh, c'était incroyable. Et puis à un moment donné, et puis tout ça. J'avais pas vu. Il y avait la cave? Non plus. Audience Awards, The Stanley Parable. L'Académie anglaise des films et des arts de télévision. Ok, Stanley Parable. « 2013 bien sûr, 2013, tout ça n'a pas changé.
Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain?
Ah, tu vas pas me faire cette blague, il y en a 12 quand même.
We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
Là, il y a un truc. Est-ce que je peux le récupérer et avoir un 7ème collectible? Ah mais j'ai plus de blabla. Louloup. Ah, on va enchaîner tous les endroits avec les collectibles. Ok, let's go.
And here was a second Stanley. I'll be honest, back then I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me.
Je sais plus si c'est la deuxième qu'on a trouvé celle-là. Donc on va vraiment y en avoir 12. J'ai dit 12 au pif, mais 12. 12. 12. Ah. On dirait des photos des mecs qui ont massacré, qui ont fait de la merde en anarchie.
Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini stand? Can you remember?
C'était le warehouse, non? Parce que le boss bathroom, on a chopé celle-là, plus celle qui était derrière la cheminée. Et après on est revenu dans les portes bleues et rouges. Donc pour moi la troisième c'était celle-là.
Hey, that's exactly right. It was here in the warehouse. It was the third one. You picked it up, and then after that, you had 3 of them. I'm glad these moments are so crystal clear in your memory, but I shouldn't be surprised. After all, science tells us that it's impossible to forget your third time doing anything.
La fameuse troisième fois. Alors le truc c'est que j'ai 2 solutions. Soit je vais là.
Let's see, what came next?
Ça on connaît pas ça.
Oh yes, we found a Figley in this pink room.
Non,
well,
jamais.
I can't actually say I remember being in this room, but it's here in the memory zone, so it must have happened.
Avant de la ramasser, parce que je sens qu'il va se passer une dinguerie. On va retourner dans la zone de l'autre côté. Voir si on peut faire le full collectible. Ah bah je peux plus revenir, bah d'accord, comme ça c'est réglé. Hop. Doulouloup. Là c'est celle qui était juste à droite après.
This was the 5th mini stand, and this one was really something
Du coup on a skippé
special.
celle des toilettes.
Behind the boss's office. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion. Enjoy.
Enjoy. Oh putain, le vieux truc des années 2005. Oh le montage Windows Movie Maker à l'ancienne, dans la dinguerie. Avec des vieux effets collage bidon. Magnifique résolution de 360p. Oh, on a tous connu ça, hein. tout ce qui allait pas, quoi. Tout ce qui allait pas. The narrator, let's go.
Takes you back, doesn't it? I spent a lot of time making that video, but it was 8 minutes I wouldn't have spent on anything else.
Ah ouais d'accord, 8 minutes quoi. Ouais, j'ai passé beaucoup de temps à la faire, hein, 8 minutes. Hein. J'ai fait tellement de ces montages avec tout ça. Il manque juste le Shutterstock. Ah, il y avait plein de trucs, ouais. Les transitions toutes pétées. Il y a la même, on a tous fait ça, on a tous fait ça. Et du coup, celle des toilettes, on la récupère pas. Hein.
And then, Stanley, then we came to the last collectible, the final figurine, right here by the red and blue doors. This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figly and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other. Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly like.
Et donc là, on sort de la zone des mémoires. Oh, oh c'est stylé. Tu es dans le présent.
And then there was no more. Because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Ah, c'est genre ça se finit comme ça, quoi.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here?
Il est cassé, mais il est revenu en arrière.
Go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
Mais pourquoi? Mais ça va pas. Hein. Quelle est cette Ok, bref.
Okay, yes, the room with the red and blue doors. I remember this. I must say, of all the figurines we looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone, this one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going, I want more.
Et donc on va passer yes. Allez, on agrémente, on agrémente. On est parti pour 18. C'est-à-dire qu'on va pouvoir aller chercher celle des toilettes maintenant. Est-ce qu'on va se retaper le montage?
And here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched?
Ah ça va, il a bien accéléré mais... Ah oui, mais il manque beaucoup plus de trucs aussi. Non seulement ça allait vite, mais il a relevé les 3/4. Hein. Oula. Ok.
Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room though, a solid room.
Ça avait rien à voir avec la traduction, elle était cassée. Il adore cette pièce, une pièce solide. Manger des pommes. Petit placement de produit. Hein. Alors qu'est-ce qu'il allait se faire chier à foutre une caisse là-haut?
These really were a treat to hunt down. You know, if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have neutered the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation. Next one.
Et donc là, au lieu de revenir à droite, je pourrais aller en face, chercher celle des toilettes. Ah non, il y a juste rien. Ok.
This was our second Figly. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose to leave it? Keep going. This is it, the very first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figurines. Oh, I want more memories.
Tu as eu l'autorisation de live aujourd'hui. Parce que les lives sauvages c'est bien beau, mais je fais comment si vous êtes plusieurs? Ah moi je stream quand je suis dispo. J'ai regardé sur Nini, mais elle dit que c'est de ta faute, qu'elle manque d'organisation. Mais faut en vouloir au taf, hein. C'est pour ça qu'il n'y a plus de planning, c'est que ça change tellement souvent par semaine que je peux même plus faire de planning. Entre les matins, les soirs, les machins, Colexamol, yeah. Ah, et on est revenu dans le salon principal, on n'est plus... Le salon principal c'est vite dit parce que... que dur
Look,
tes
it's the
horaires.
terrible new content that we were originally sold on. I remember hating it back then. But time does
J'avoue que
put a
tout le monde
rosy
devait être là en
filter on
mode quoi, on peut, on peut
everything. In
enfin
fact, I
sauter.
dare say I'm actually
On aurait
quite
pu tester
fond of
plein de
it
trucs dans le
now.
jeu et c'était
Look
juste
how much
le
fun
full
the
prank.
past is. I want more memories.
On peut toujours pas, on peut plus sauter, on a plus de saut. J'ai appelé ton patron, c'est quoi ces horaires et ce stream?
Oh yes, the two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one.
Ah oui, il n'y a plus de bureau ni rien, on revient directement ici.
And before everything else, there was your office. Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember. Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with profound thoughtfulness. And then somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy. And I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions. He would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I needed to imagine I had
Le
companions.
clutch, il a inventé
And
Stanley.
Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion,
On a été
even if he
inventé.
was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory? Let's go back just once and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good. I did enjoy telling his story so very much. Okay, here we go. This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Et du coup on est reparti pour refaire des boucles, etc. La dinguerie, hein. Mais on a plus le saut. Avec le saut on aurait pu tester tellement de trucs.